Hello and welcome to another Leadership Insights. I'm joined this week from San Diego by Rick Snyder, who's an executive coach and author of Decisive Intuition, a great book, which I'll send a link to below. Rick, thanks for joining me. How are things in San Diego right now?
Right now, they actually are sunny. We had a week of London weather the last week, so it's great to have the sun back, which is such a great part about living here.
Yeah, if you can go without, that is. And that's one of the things clearly to discuss. I mean, obviously, one of the upsides at the moment to COVID-19, as much as all the obviously the issues of the lockdown, is that CEOs and leaders are finding time to do some strategic thinking. And I find sometimes when you have time and you're not used to it, perhaps sometimes you overthink things. But as a leader in sort of thoughts around intuitive intelligence, what are some of the important steps that leaders and CEOs can take at this time to make sure they're really accessing their intuition and using it in the right way?
Yeah, so I would say this is actually the most important time to learn how to really be mindful of all the noise that's going on in the space, all the overwhelm of media and the incessant cycles of information that we're all taking in.
Yeah.
So I would say there's never been a more important time to really be discerning about how much input you take in and then what you do with that, as well as how do you actually tune into your own internal resources. And so I think there's never been a more important time for really trusting your experience.
Yeah.
How do you actually connect the dots when you slow down and you get into that strategic mindset? And yet it's not so easy to do that because a lot of times, as you're saying, a lot of executives I'm working with, they're home for the first time working remotely when they have 3 kids in the background.
Yeah.
Or, they have other uncomfortable interruptions they're not used to. So how do you find that time and space? And so I'm going to offer 3 steps that I've seen work effectively with executives that I'm working with right now from all over the world. This stuff works. So Pay attention, please. Okay. So the first step is actually you have to interrupt your routine. And so what does that look like? Sometimes that might look like taking a tech detox if you want to get into that strategic mindset and that intuitive space. So what does that mean to sometimes be willing to put down your phone, put down the news cycles? Do you need to, if you have a yard or some kind of nature access, can you get out of the house for a moment? Or what does it take to just interrupt your routine so that you're not in that busyness cycle? Because when we're in that go, go, go mode and we're in that reactivity and panic space, we're not going to access our innovative thinking.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges might be at the moment, because you have time, and by definition we're usually very busy, is that you find things to be busy around, and often that's just recycling the same news or overanalyzing some of the stuff that's going on around you.
Exactly. And I think there is a time for Netflix and a time for just letting your nervous system relax. I think that's great. But notice, are you using all your time as busy time, even if you are home now? Is it quality time of how you're actually using your time? That's a really good question to ask yourself. And so how do you get into that more strategic groove when you want to look at leading your company, leading your team, whatever that might look like, or how you need to adapt in the moment because things are changing so fast. So that's where you have to look at what gets you in that mood. For me, it's exercise interrupts my routine. So if I notice that I'm feeling stale in my head, or I'm just recycling the same thoughts or emotional reactivity about something, sometimes in exercise, I'll go for a run, a bicycle ride. If you could do something at your house, even if it's a 5-minute breathing exercise, it could be that simple, like 2 minutes, that really just interrupts your normal way of thinking. That's going to have you start to see things in a more fresh perspective. So that's the first step, is interrupt your normal routine and your normal mindset. Number 2 is then how do you slow down and breathe? This is really important. When we slow down and breathe, we literally get more in our body and less in our swirling thoughts. Mm-hmm. And this is where I make my worst decisions from, is like what you said in the beginning. When I'm overthinking things and my engine is running too hot, literally, and I have that analysis paralysis because there's so much data and I'm waiting for more data, I don't know how to take action from that place. Or I could be emotionally reactive. So because there's a lot of fear and anxiety in the space, maybe I make decisions that are not in the best interest of my company or myself because I'm just in that reactive, okay, we got to push go right now.
Yeah.
Versus what happens if I just take a moment to pause and I just take a deep breath? And literally what's called the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in our body that goes from our brain stem to our gut literally is where we get all of our information from, all of the signals that we're getting from our whole body, not just our head. So when we slow down, we're actually open to more information in a more panoramic sense. I had an executive I was coaching last week, and a huge factory that just had to shut down and then start up, which is a really complicated process for the size of this factory. And he was dealing with a lot of employees, wasn't sure if they were coming back or not, and all this, a lot of concern and unknown.
Yeah.
And so he was doing what we call box breathing, where you breathe in for 4, you hold for a 4 count, you exhale for 4, and you hold for a 4 count. And what this does is it slows down your mind, and it gets you into that more intuitive subconscious where you can access that more creativity and that innovative thinking. This is exactly what the Navy SEALs do when they're in a hostile situation or an area of chaos and unknown. They'll actually practice box breathing to get centered again, to get calm. And then it's amazing the thoughts that we start to get and the ideas that create when we get in a more emotionally stable place. Mm-hmm. That's step 2, is slow down and breathe. And then the third step to access your intuitive intelligence is ask a question. What's a question that's up for you? Should I postpone this launch right now in this era of COVID, or should we go ahead as planned? And how do I actually run a simulation? So if I imagine choice A is to actually launch the product, let's say, then what does that feel like in my body when I slow down? What do my signals and cues tell me about that option? And then I run another simulation around choice B is maybe we postpone. And then what comes up for me when I imagine postponing? Do I feel constricted? Do I feel excited? Do I feel open? Do I feel uncertain? What are the different emotions, energies, the ways that I get information that show up for me? Mm-hmm. And then I can use that and check in with other colleagues and trusted advisors in my life. But if I really start to learn my intuitive language and how my subconscious and how my intuition speaks to me, that's going to be a whole added area of input and amazing data that I can still use with my other critical thinking and other critical data that I'm getting outside of me.
Yeah.
So that's just the last thing, is just how can leaders include their own inner experience with their decision making so they're not just in that reactive space.
Yeah, I think those are critical factors as well. As you know, I'm quite a big fan of meditating, but taking the opportunity to slow down and to listen to yourself, and again, not just your head, because we all, I should say, have heads that are running hot quite often, and not taking the time out to actually listen to all of your senses and all of your experiences.
Mm.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing, David, is we're so much more intelligent than we give ourselves credit for. And when we actually slow down to let life catch up to us, and all of the data that we've been accumulating from the last week, month, whatever it's been, and we slow down, then we actually can connect the dots in a more powerful way.
Yeah, excellent. Well, listen, thanks for taking the time out, Rick, to join us. We'll put a link in below for the book and for other resources where people can find out some more about things. But again, I think that's an important thing when we have that opportunity to overthink, is to just really get in tune with ourselves. And I know that you're a great proponent of combining data with intuition and that sort of whole leadership aspect. So appreciate you coming and sharing some of your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Great to be here with you.